What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel. Now, welcome back. And what you can do is go ahead and hit that subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, of course, your taste level is lacking. And if that's the case, then it's fine. We don't judge here. The world needs balance, so we need people with good taste and bad taste. Chabella is back there on the patio, harassing the leaves and birds. And before y'all start, I did not just set y'all's niece on the patio, okay? Actually, Blue is hiding from her. He might be hiding from me too, hell, because I couldn't even find him. When I saw where he was, I'm like, yeah, he don't want to be bothered. She looked everywhere for him. She cannot find him. And so she was like, girl, just let me go do my thing on the patio. Today, Blue is giving big brother that does not want to be bothered with little sister. Today's video is about a guy by the name of Wayne Boden from Canada. Now, Wayne was born January 1st, 1948, making him a Capricorn. And I love a Capricorn, but not this one. He was born in Ontario, Canada, and not a whole lot is known about his childhood, but here's what I was able to dig up. He grows up in a home where he is not shown any love or affection. He was a very quiet and reserved child and very fit from playing sports consistently throughout secondary school. By high school, he is regarded as an attractive young man because apparently sideburns were in, child. And they say he also had a very charming smile. A lot of the young girls that he went to school with were attracted to him, and he dated several of his classmates throughout his little high school career. And although he still has somewhat of a shy demeanor by now, he is not to be played with, and this is something that is known by all of his peers. Very much given, I am a killer, so don't push me. And they found this out when one day he is provoked by a fellow student who underestimates his ability or willingness to stand up for himself. The two get into a nasty little fight in front of most of the student body, and Wayne beats this other student to a bloody pulp. It was really bad, and it wasn't that difficult to do for him considering how athletic he is. This fight was so brutal that it left a lasting impression on most of the students there at the high school. And so going forward, not many of them make the mistake of attempting to test his gangster. By the age of 20, not only has he discovered the world of S&M, he's also perfected his charm and charisma and prides himself on his ability to woo the women. He had absolutely no problem whatsoever grasping the attention of a woman and keeping it. The problem is none of these relationships last long, and not because of irreconcilable differences. Friday, October 3rd, 1969, 21-year-old Wayne is approaching the front door of his apartment at around 2 a.m. when he sees his 20-year-old neighbor, Shirley Ardet, sitting outside of her apartment. And she lives in the apartment exactly next door to him. The two of them greet each other, and she introduces herself as the two of them had not previously formally met. However, Wayne has definitely had his eye on Shirley for some time now. He's definitely noticed her. Now, Shirley shared the apartment with her friend Kenneth, and Kenneth is at work. He works the night shift. She hates being in that apartment alone, so much so that she would often talk to Kenneth on the phone throughout his work shift at night to keep her from feeling, lonely and alone. So when she sees Wayne, she is more than willing to strike up and have a short, brief conversation. At around 3 a.m., she calls Kenneth and they have a brief conversation. And in this brief conversation, she mentions to him that she had met someone, but she does not give any specific details. And this is the last time anyone hears from her. Kenneth had attempted to call her back at around 5 a.m. and he got no answer. Initially, he just figured maybe she had gone to sleep. That is, until he gets home from work and she is not there in the apartment. He does everything that he can think of. He reaches out to those close to her to see if anyone has an idea where she could be or if anyone has spoken to her, and no one else has spoken to her either. It's as if she's just completely disappeared. And so he decides to go ahead and reach out to the local police and report her missing. During the police's search for her, they find her in the rear of the apartment complex. And although she is fully clothed, she has been violated, strangled, and has these very deep bite marks on her breast. It's obviously human teeth marks, and it's as if they tried to bite through the skin. And as if the tragedy itself is not bad enough, it is discovered that she was actually 5 weeks pregnant. Now, there is no skin underneath her fingernails, which led investigators to believe or assume that to a degree she had been a willing participant in the sexual activity. They also note that she is not the first but the second woman to have been discovered like this with these deep bite marks in her chest. And that is something that is not so typical. The previous summer, 21-year-old Norma had been found inside of her apartment under the same exact circumstances. Police could not find any sign of a struggle. And strangely, the medical examiner had made a note that she had died with a smile on her face. So in this instance as well, they questioned how much of this was consensual, which I feel like is BS. Obviously, them losing their life was not consensual, so what does it matter? Aside the fact that this proves that maybe she was familiar with her perpetrator or she had known him to some degree, and maybe also to know exactly what to charge him with. I guess it's some relevancy. Maybe I'm just emotionally invested. November of 1969, 20-year-old Marielle is settling into her apartment, and she is also new to the city. She spends a few nights here and there at a local nightclub where she meets a tall, handsome, and charming young man by the name of William Boden, aka Bill. She spends the evening drinking, dancing, and conversing with Bill, and later tells her friends about how entranced she was by this great guy that she had met. She also tells her coworkers about this great guy, and they actually get the chance to meet Bill just a couple of days later. On November 23rd, she leaves work at closing time with a young man that she introduces to her coworkers as Bill, the nice, handsome, charismatic young man that she had been telling them about. And he proves to be just as charming and enchanting as she had made him out to be. But the following morning, Marielle does not show up for work. And after making several attempts to contact her and not getting an answer, her boss decides to go to her apartment to check on her and make sure, everything was okay. It is extremely unlike her to miss work, especially without calling first. And she had not shown any signs or made any mention of not feeling well the night before. So her boss is very concerned, and along with the landlady enters her apartment to find Marielle completely dressed, laying across her couch, but it is obvious that she is not breathing, and so they contact police immediately. And the same as with Shirley. Although she is completely dressed, the medical examiner finds that she has also been violated, and also, just like the women before, had suffered these very deep bite marks on her breast. Her apartment is somewhat disheveled, leading investigators to believe that she had put up a struggle to some degree. And among the mess that they find on the floor, they find a crumpled up photo of a man who the co-workers identify as Bill, the guy that she had recently met, whom she had left to work with, and had told them she recently began dating. So right away, they get to work trying to identify the gentleman in the photo, find out his full name, and find out where this little Bill guy is. When they have no luck, they have a police composite sketch made based off of this picture, and they release that to the public, asking if anybody had any information on who this guy could be to contact them. And someone does, in fact, recognize the composite sketch and comes forward to help identify this mystery man by first and last name. Turns out that this mystery guy in the photo is not actually Bill, but instead Marielle's deceased father. Now, if Wayne crumpled that picture up on his way out, he really is worse than I thought, because that's disrespectful. Roughly 2 months later, 24-year-old Jean has a romantic date night scheduled with her boyfriend, yet he has not heard from her in the hours leading up to their scheduled date. Regardless, he arrives to her apartment anyway, and her car is outside. He is knocking on the door, but she is not answering. He is, of course, still calling her phone, and she is not answering that either. And so after some time, he decides to just get back in his car and go back home. A few hours later, something compelled him to go back to the apartment. He had this feeling in his gut that something was not right. And this time when he gets there, he checks the doorknob and finds that her door is in fact unlocked. The apartment is quiet. It's dark and it appears to be completely empty, but he proceeds to take a look around anyway because, like I said, her car is still parked out front. He enters her bedroom to find her there laying across her bed, completely unclothed. But unlike the previous women, Jean has no bite marks. Still, police are convinced that although the infamous bite marks are missing, she is in fact the latest victim of the same person responsible for Marielle, Norma, and Shirley. After they get the statement from the boyfriend, it makes sense to them why in this one instance the bite marks are not there. It is their belief that the perpetrator was still inside of the apartment when the boyfriend showed up the first time and was disrupted and startled by the knocking at the door, thus deciding to flee before he could finish what he was there to do. Now with a victim count of 4, it is pretty obvious to police that they have a serial offender here. And the media, of course, gravitates toward the story. They begin publishing articles about the details that they do have, and the publicity of it all causes a whole lot of people to panic. And with the streets being so hot, Wayne decides to leave Montreal and heads to the city of Calgary. He moves to this new city, but he takes his same old tricks right along with him. 4 months after he claimed his last victim, 33-year-old Elizabeth goes missing in Calgary. And Elizabeth is last seen by her co-workers, stopped at a red light, sitting inside a blue Mercedes on the evening of May 17th, 1971. The following morning, she does not show up to her job as a high school teacher. And of course, it is not like her to not at least call the school and let them know when she would be absent. They make several attempts to reach out to her and contact her, and none of them are successful. And so at this point, they reach out to her apartment manager to go by and do a wellness check on her, and the apartment manager finds her there inside of the apartment, laying on her bedroom floor, unconscious. Her apartment is slightly trashed as if a struggle had ensued, and she has unfortunately suffered the same exact fate as the 4 women before her, bite marks included. When she is removed from her bed, crime scene investigators discover a broken cufflink underneath her that they feel is obviously from the person responsible. They expand their investigation by speaking to those who were close to Elizabeth, beginning with the people that they had known had seen her most recently, her co-workers. And 2 of them recall seeing her there at that stoplight in that blue Mercedes. And so of course they passed this information along to police, also noting that on the back of the car there was a small bull-shaped decal stuck on the rear window. A friend of Elizabeth's also informs police that she had been dating a man by the name of Bill, whom she described as a very flashy dresser with neat short hair. Not really much of a description there, but we ain't gonna give her too much. She was probably a little shaken and a little stirred in her spirit. The following day, May 19th, that blue Mercedes with the bull decal is spotted by police officers conveniently parked near Elizabeth's apartment. I don't know what's with these guys and returning to the crime scene, child. Now the car is empty, but they have good faith that at some point he's going to return to this car, that it has not just been abandoned there. And so they sit and wait. And it is not long before Wayne shows up tugging at that car door. They arrest him immediately. During questioning, Wayne tells them that he moved to Calgary from Montreal a year ago, which we know that's a lie. You only been there about 4 months. He also tells them that for the past couple of months, he and Elizabeth have been dating. They present to him the cufflink, and he immediately claims ownership of it. He also admits to them that he had gone to see Elizabeth that night, but she was indeed alive and well at the time that he had left her home. After spending several hours under interrogation, Bill finally reveals his true identity, Wayne Boden. I guess this was getting tired and hungry. He then confesses to 4 of the crimes they had suspected him of, but claims that the first, Norma, was not his doing. He is adamant that he had nothing to do with what happened to her, despite her having the same bite marks. Now, although it would be kind of strange for him to admit to 4 and not a 5th, if he really was the guy behind all 5, but they still think he's lying. They do not believe that he had nothing to do with Norma, and so they charge him for all 5 women. Aside from the teeth marks, they really had no other evidence, like literally none. And so they needed this to be able to prove that Wayne is in fact responsible. This is the one piece of evidence, aside from his confession, that they have to link him to these crimes and get a conviction. But Canada had not yet dealt with any forensic dentistry. This would have been the first time, and they were very unfamiliar. So they reached out to the US FBI for guidance, because at the time, we had done this a couple of times, child. So they gladly walk Canada through the process. They have Wayne's teeth examined, and they compared that to the bite marks left on these women. They find 29 points where Wayne's teeth match exactly to Elizabeth's injuries. And although this is the first time that such evidence is taken into court, it is declared that this evidence provided by the orthodontist is sufficient and valid. And with that, the jury of Wayne's trial finds him guilty for the murder of Elizabeth, and he is sentenced to life in prison. But that is not it, because he has to now go back to Montreal and face charges there for the 3 victims that he has admitted are his, and the one that he claims to have nothing to do with, but they believe that he is lying, and so off to Montreal he goes. He gets there, he tells them the same old story. Look, I'm guilty when it comes to Marielle, Shirley, and Jean, but I had nothing to do with this Norma woman. And for the 3 women that he confesses to, he receives an additional 3 life sentences. They were not successful in gaining a conviction for the 4th woman, Norma. After sentencing, he is hauled off to Kingston Penitentiary in Kingston, Ontario, to serve out his multiple life sentences. Now get this, because things get real interesting from here. 5 years into his sentence, Wayne is granted a credit card by American Express. Now for one, why is he over there applying for our credit cards from behind bars? On the application, y'all didn't notice that the address to where to send this card is actually a prison? Is there not a law that forbids people who are in jail or serving life sentences from applying for a credit card? Because what income did you put down? What income did you have to pay this statement when it comes, Wayne? By this time, Wayne had been granted access or the privilege of having day passes. And so on one of these day passes, he takes his little credit card out with him and decides he wants to go out to eat lunch at a really nice hotel restaurant. And he is going to treat his social worker, who is accompanying him, to an expensive little meal, courtesy of him and his American Express. I bet he was the commissary king if they took credit cards. Swiping that American Express, just buying all the noodles. If he was smart, he would resell them, make the girls pay extra if they wanted some noodles. But anywho, I guess he had bigger and, grander plans. Because on this little lunch outing, he goes to use the restroom and escapes out of the bathroom window. Baby, the social worker had been wined, dined, and finessed, okay? Because by the time they realized that Lil Wayne would not be returning to the table and it actually ricocheted out of the bathroom window down the building, he was long gone, okay? He was gone. Out of there. But about a day and a half later, he is recaptured when they find him after being spotted at a local bar in downtown Montreal. He didn't even try to go far. You should have swiped that little American Express at a bus station somewhere, sir. But he did not. Instead, he just decides to go down to the bar, even though his little face is being plastered all over the TV. Someone there quickly turns him in for their reward money, and he is taken right back down to his little prison cot. As a social worker and 3 prison guards in trouble for his little shenanigans, the little stunt he pulled. But I guess they weren't paying attention and doing their job, so maybe they earned a little bit of that. Not only that, somebody down to American Express was under hot water and under fire too, because they were trying to figure out how an inmate serving 4 life sentences managed to get approved for a credit card and mailed one. And at this point, Wayne then got his little use out of the credit card, so he wasn't bothered by it. Over the years, Wayne's health begins to decline and he is diagnosed with skin cancer. On March 27, 2006, after being bedridden in the prison hospital for over 6 weeks, he finally loses his battle with skin cancer. And at the time, he was 58 years old. And you know what? It was actually discovered in 1994 that he had been telling the truth about his innocence as it pertained to Norma. The person that was responsible was found and convicted for it. Coincidentally, he and Wayne just had the same MO. You know what's also really strange? In my research, I found this article that suggests Wayne's breast gnawing was rooted in his psyche from early childhood, and I'm talking really early childhood, like around the time that he was breastfeeding early, and that it possibly began with the infant biting and gnawing on his mother, even though this isn't a memory that a child would typically carry beyond infancy. But they can, however, possess a subconscious memory of the enjoyment they felt while doing it, as a baby. This is not the first time that I've come across the theory that breastfeeding can have lasting subconscious effects on some infants. And I'm pro breastfeeding here, I'm just saying. And I'm not saying it's true or, that I agree with the research, but I just find it interesting, and so I'm going to share it with you. Y'all know I don't make the news, I just report. I mentioned this before in a previous video about a cannibal that I did a case on, and how psychologists had also linked that back to breastfeeding, and how babies innocently have this urge to devour their mother. Now it sounds dark, but hear me out. Babies just know that they're hungry. They know hunger. And they know the food is coming from their mother. But their brains don't grasp the whole concept and break it down like, okay, I'm hungry and my mother is lactating because I was in there and I'm now just drinking her milk. It is a lot more simple than that in their little minds. It's basically just your food, like your food, girl. And I've seen how babies go at the boobs. Very savage and aggressive. And so it fits the theory. Now, it is theorized, if that's a word, that this biting could have developed from the anger and resentment that he felt as an infant being weaned off his mother's breast. And how naturally, when this occurs, the child becomes angry with the mother. And it could be a very traumatizing event for a baby. And that trauma can manifest itself within the subconscious mind and follow this child into adulthood. And paired with the fact that he did not have this loving relationship with his mother, the two things combined is just a recipe for a breast biting maniac. And now this innocent, beautiful act of a baby receiving milk from his mother's breast has manifested itself into this very sick and twisted version, which is him biting these women's chests and extracting blood from it. It's like if breastfeeding was a nightmare. Let me know what you guys think about that. I'm very interested to see. I have found it to be extremely interesting. And I'm not saying that I'm convinced that this is exactly what happened or that you shouldn't feed your babies from your boobs. However, it does not sound too far-fetched to believe. And I didn't go to psychology school, so who are me to tell them that their theory is trash? And you know what? I always viewed breastfeeding as this great, beautiful act. Like, if I had a baby, I would definitely give it a try. But what I am not trying to do is have little BJ trying to eat me up, looking at me as a piece of meat and trying to gnaw my chesticles off, and then grow up and have that in the deepest, darkest corner of its mind, ultimately leading them to wreak havoc on society like Lil Wayne did. I guess the chances are slim considering how many people were breastfeeding did not grow up to do all of the things that he did, so I might be alright. Then again, my luck, child, ain't no telling. I just feel in my spirit as a couple watching right now where one of the partners is into that little rough suction, and they're probably looking at their partner right now like side eye. That might be where it came from, but don't necessarily mean that they are a Wayne. And if it is you that is into this, don't be ashamed. As long as you're not out here trying to draw blood. We all have our thing. It's okay. Alright, so that concludes today's video, and I am very eager to talk to y'all some more about this in the comment section. So please leave your thoughts below, share this video with a friend, like it if you have not, and subscribe if you are not subscribed to the channel. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. And what you can do is go ahead and hit the subscribe. I've been trying to decide how I want my makeup to look today, but I don't know still. Jeez. Let me just start and pray for the best. I was about to say if I ain't a killer but don't push me was a person to be him, but obviously he's a killer because we're here today. I am a killer but don't push me was more what he was given. World of S&M. Yeah, this was not what I was supposed to do. She had met at the and someone does recognize the compost. What? I was gonna say compost girl. I don't know if I want to smoke out the edges or not. I kind of like this, but I don't know. Let me smoke out the edges. My spirit is saying smoke out the edges. Now, two of them recall seeing her there at that spotlight. Spotlight, what? They present to him the cuff mark. Cuff mark. What is the cuff mark, girl? What's that? To Kingston Penitentiary. What? And by this, why am I'm trying to use this as a mirror. By this point, wearing health begins to declined with the girl. Jeez Louise, almost at the finish line.